Alan and Stephanie, thank you very much for talking to me. You live in a house that's owned by the Housing and Loan Fund. Would you mind telling us what that means to you, please?
Well, just simply we couldn't have afforded a full rental house without the help from the Housing and Loan Fund. And apart from the fact that the house itself is very, very comfortable, it's warm, it's cosy, and as one gets on in years, one doesn't want a lot of hassle over trying to stay warm and the one month I was in, I had to go around in an overcoat inside the house. It was so drafty. So this is a big far cry from that, and we really appreciate.
Well, I'm very glad that you don't have to wear your overcoat in this house, and I'm very glad that it's warm and cosy. Unfortunately, not long after you moved in, there were some problems. We discovered that there had been some flooding under the floor, and we had to move you out for a while. That must have been quite a hassle for you.
Well, it was a hassle, but it really wasn't that bad because the department was so helpful in getting us accommodation and getting us nice accommodation where we could take our dog, and it was, we'd rather not to have moved out, but that actually the house is better now than it was before, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And no, we're glad that the hassle's over, but it's just good. It's good. Can't say anything against the way we were treated.
No, y'all went above and beyond.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. And you're happy in the community that you're living in?
Yes.
The community in Dunoon is brilliant. They're really, really nice people, really friendly people. They're encouraging people. They welcome you, and they're even nice to you in the shops. And the doctor's not bad either.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that you're happy and comfortable. You were telling me earlier that you thought if it hadn't been for the Housing and Loan Fund, you would have had to have gone on working.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been able to afford to retire. So it's good that you have had the opportunity to retire.
But what's good, the way my health has gone, it's really been beneficial to be able to retire and not have the mental pressure of having to go on, and that if you're feeling unwell and not being able to do things that you once did, then it isn't fair on a congregation to expect them to carry you.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us, and I hope that you continue to be warm and comfortable and happy in this house.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done.
Yes.
Well, Fred and Ellen, thank you very much for talking to us today. We're in your lovely house, which you own with the help of a loan from the Housing and Loan Fund. Could you maybe tell us, please, how much that means to you?
Well, if I can just start, then it means a great deal, because in our line of work, when I started in the ministry, there was a house to move into as a minister, a young minister in Stirling. But then as we grew through the years, we were aware that really, the years would pass and a time would come when we would need one, but where to find one? And then you were very reassuring at that time, and we were greatly indebted to you. Thank you.
Good. And what do you think you would have had to do if Housing and Loan had not been available to you?
Well, I think it would have been really stressful for us, never having had any experience of going to banks and borrowing money and one thing and another like that. We had no idea of what would be involved as to how much we would be able to borrow and how much we would be paying back and the percentages of this, that and the next thing. For us, that would have been completely confusing. So it was a relief to discover at Crieff Hydro, at the retirement conference, that there was help available. And I must admit that the whole thing was painless when we sat down and discussed what monies we had and where the housing and loan could help top us up. And that's the way it was. It was all completely painless, and we were very grateful.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good. Well, you have a lovely house, and I'm glad that you're happily settled in it. And I think perhaps you would recommend housing and loan to other people as they approach retirement.
Oh, without a doubt.
All
Without
the
a
time, all the
doubt.
time,
Mhm.
all the time.
Definitely.
And I think, if I can just add that, as I said, if in fact it can reassure some ministers who perhaps just haven't had the opportunity to think about retirement, that when that day comes you'll be there, certainly that's a huge incentive to keep on going.
Mhm.
And in these days, you know, it's very important to try to keep on going. I mean, we're here continuing a ministry that ended 15 years ago, really. But here we go again, thanks to you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your time. We're very grateful to you.
Not at all.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.